folks, Ariel over here with a bee update. So if you've been following along on our journey, I am not a bee expert. We've had bees here now for a little over a year. I did know a little bit about taking care of them from helping my dad a little bit with his when I was a young child, but this was the first time in my adult life I'd had my own. We got our first colony in, for a brief rundown, in April something of last year when it snowed the next day after we got them. Pardon the four-wheeler summer traffic in the area. There tends to be more four-wheelers than other vehicles on the roads this time of year, and they're a bit noisy. Very wintry when we got them. We're very pleased with the colony we got from a guy who lives kind of on the other side of the state, but he was the closest beekeeper I could find to having bees in our climate. And I know there are people like Dr. Leo out there who highly recommend you start with catching swarms instead of buying any bees at all, which is awesome. I've never seen any wild bees here in the mountains in this area to catch a swarm from. So even if I did, which I had put swarm traps out the year before and did not catch anything, but if I did catch one, they would probably be one that had just left somebody else's kept beehive, which wouldn't be a big deal, but it just made getting a good wild swarm not really feasible here. So we bought one. They did phenomenal last year, produced tons of honey. We had taken 2 splits off of them, so turned it into 3 hives. Well, we tried 2. And dirt bikes. There's lots of dirt bikes too. And one was very, very successful. The other one never successfully. The second one never, or I guess it'd be the third hive that never successfully produced a queen. They tried raising 3 different ones. I don't know if a bluebird ate her when she went off to go on her mating flight or what, but they didn't end up with a queen, so they died out by fall. But the other 2, the original and their baby hive, basically did great through our long and record cold winter, and now it is summer again. So I had checked on them kind of in the last video you guys had seen, when there was a spell of some sunny days there between the snow and the rain. And then we had 5 weeks of rain. It finally had cleared last week. We had like 2 days of sun. Of course, that meant the temperature dropped. We hadn't had freezes when it was so rainy every day, which is highly unusual for us here, but the rain is, not the freezes. So when it cleared, of course, it froze hard both those nights. We had a rain/snow mix the one day, lots of white up in the mountains. You guys probably saw pictures of that if you follow us on MeWe. And the next day, the sun actually came out and it was nice. And so check on the bees again was on my to-do list, and I was actually painting a 4th hive box that I got, because we had 3 from last year, only 2 occupied going into winter. I was working on painting that to get that all set up, because my long-term goal was to eventually have 4 colonies here that would give us plenty of, I think, more honey than we could use on almost any year, plus give us some options should 1 or 2 or even 3 die out. We would hopefully still have 1 that would make it each winter to divide from and not need to have a new bee source. So that was the goal. So I was working on that. I was over there painting under the lean-to, and I look out. Mind you, I've already walked around the property today, or that day, and had checked on everything, looked at the beehive entrances. Everyone's busy doing their thing. And it looks like in our one little cherry tree in the orchard that somebody's thrown a black coat over it. And I was like, that's really weird. Clay's at work. I'm the only one here. Nobody else would be like pitching their coat in a tree. What am I looking at? And I pretty quickly realized there is a swarm of bees in the tree. That little cherry tree is 20-something feet from the entrance of that second hive. I was pretty sure the swarm probably had just left that hive. I was like, wow, I've read about what to do with this. If you guys see what looks like snow in the air, that's cottonwood fluff flying. It's not snowing. But right after the snow ends, we get that in the air, and it looks very similar to snowflakes. So I thought, well, I've got this box. This was the one that was empty all winter. We're over here kind of down by the creek. You can probably hear it. It's flowing really high this spring with all the rain. All ready to go, but it was empty after that colony had died out for lack of queen last year. So I scooped up. I got a little video of the bees in their swarm, and then I wasn't quite sure how the rest of it was going to go, and I didn't want to mess things up and try to move cameras at the same time and so on. So I just got a cardboard box, and I carefully scooped the bees off of the branches and stuff they were hanging on into that box. When I first got them in there, the bees were starting to crawl out again, and then they kind of turned around and crawled back in. I assumed that meant I got the queen, though I did not see her. So got them mostly scooped into that cardboard box, brought them down here, and just kind of dumped the whole box in here. Again, they started to crawl in, so I assumed she was in there. And they seem to have settled in. Now, that was 5 days ago. I have not opened this box since then to check on them, but we're going to see how they're settled in. Plus, mostly, I've got some empty frames with foundation here that I want to put in because they have some in here, but I want to fill it up so they have plenty for the rest of the summer, and I just wanted to get them caught while they were, before they decided on some other home in the area to move to, because I'd like them to move into our box, and so I didn't have time to get that all done that day. So we are going to see what they've got going on in here. The entrance, as you can probably see, because the camera's looking at, has been pretty good and busy ever since. They're coming and going and seeming productive. So I think they're settled in here, but we're going to find out what it looks like. The colony they swarmed out of, our daughter split from the year before. It still seems just as busy. When I looked in there after this swarm left, I couldn't have even told that you know, there was any less bees than there had been before, to be honest. That's still humming and busy, and seems very, very happy with life in general. So we are going to see what's going on here. This gives us 3 colonies now of the 4. We'll talk about the 4th one in just a little bit. But we're going to see what they're doing in here and make sure they have plenty of foundation. So in that original colony these guys swarmed out of, I had basically messed up. Now, swarming, of course, is totally natural. This is how bee colonies reproduce themselves. When they get big and busy and full in whatever house they're living in, they say, okay, we can make a new colony. And half of them, the queen lays new eggs to be queens at the original place. And when they're mostly grown up and close to ready to hatch, they, she and half of the adults approximately will pack up and leave and go find a new spot, let the new queen and her other half of the bees live there. So that would be how a colony reproduces. But where I messed up was I did not think they could fill all the frames that were in there. It was kind of like this box. It was a little further over those frames. These boxes, the horizontal hives, can hold 21 frames when they're full, but I didn't have all 21 in there. This is just a divider board to close the end. I'm not going to use this anymore right now because I'm going to be filling this up, so I'm just going to set it down here so all the bees that are on it can fly off and find their entrance again and go where they want. It was not full still from the winter because I had condensed it down. They made it through the winter great. These guys are already, this is an empty foundation frame, and I can see they're just starting to draw comb on that. They look busy, look happy, look settled in. Anyway, so I hadn't filled it up with more empty frames this spring, and I thought I had time because I underestimated their ability to be productive. This one's feeling heavy. Lots of nectar. Don't see any capped honey on that. It's not quite full to the bottom, but especially this first side. Lots and lots of nectar on there. Again, these guys, other than what was in their bellies when they swarmed, there was nothing in this hive except for some empty comb and empty foundations when they moved in. We've got capped honey on top, nectar and brood, honey, etc. all going on there. Now, that frame and this next one, actually I moved out of that colony because when I checked it, they were so full. That's why they had to swarm. Every single cell on every frame was full of baby bees, honey, or pollen in there. So I just underestimated, apparently quite severely, how much work they could do in the rain and cool weather we had been having. So I pulled these 2 frames. I wouldn't have had to do this, but pulled these 2 frames with some brood and such out of that colony and moved them over here with these guys, partially just to give those room. So it's not surprising that those still have some brood on them growing up, but all the other frames in here were totally empty. And again, I wouldn't have had to do that for the swarm because this is heavy. This was empty. They've got it filling with nectar, maybe 2/3 full. None of it's quite condensed out enough to be capped honey yet. So, yeah, they thought they needed to swarm because there was no room left in their box, because I failed to adequately estimate how much space they would need in there. Like I said, if I'd done nothing and they had just swarmed and I hadn't happened to been around that day or see them, or they'd happened to land somewhere else, like a tree over on the mountainside beside us or something, not in our orchard, I may have never even known that they swarmed. So the queen did successfully move. That's one of the things I wanted to check, because there are lots of teensy-weensy brand new eggs on this frame, as well as nectar on top. Since I didn't see her, I did want to be sure that she hadn't gotten squished or anything in the process of them swarming or me moving them into this box. But I know she's good because I can see that this one is heavy. Oh my goodness. This was empty when they moved in here, but it's got pollen and gobs of nectar. And some, oh, yep, some eggs in there as well. So they're doing well. And so if I hadn't caught that swarm and put them in this box, they would have gone off and found something to live in. Now, bees like hollow trees. Again, lots of eggs, brand new eggs. This is the third frame with eggs, and lots of nectar. It's full about here on both sides with nectar, and eggs from there down. They like big hollow trees. In our part of the world, there's not many big hollow trees, which is makes it difficult. And it's probably one of the reasons we don't see many wild, by many, I mean in 16 years of walking around the mountains here, I've never seen a wild bee colony of honeybees. A little bit of nectar going on there at the top. Mostly they're still drawing that out. That was empty foundation. And the last frame in here I can see is the same. They're starting to draw it out, but it's mostly empty foundation. So they might have had a bit of a hard time finding a good place to live. They might have picked somebody's house wall, which probably wouldn't go over too well with, you know, the house owner or a barn or a shed, but they might have found something. That is how they would naturally reproduce. So it's not really a big deal, except that I would rather keep them around here. I had this nice box for them, and their chances just in our particular area of getting a good place to go be totally wild were not great. But I put them in here, decided if they weren't, you know, content with living here, then they could go pick what they wanted to do. But they do seem to decide that this is a good place. They're set up in here, and so I had at least 3 frames with new eggs, 2 with some of the brood I gave them out of their old hive. So there's at least 5 frames of baby bees in one stage or another going on here. Lots of honey and nectar. Once again, I'm actually rather shocked how much they have produced in the 5 days since they swarmed and came in here. So I'm really glad. I didn't think it would be necessary yet, and it wouldn't be quite yet today, but I'm really glad I'm able to get them some more empty frames. So we're just going to simply fill the rest of this box up with empty frames of foundation for them to fill with honey through the summer. If they keep working this hard, I may have to harvest some honey mid-summer just to give them some empty space to continue to store things in so they don't feel so crowded. We'll see how that goes. I wasn't planning to harvest any until fall. Got a few bits of leaves and stuff here that came with their bee ball off of the tree they were swarmed into. So I forgot how many were in here. I need 2 more frames to fill that up. So I'm going to do that. Go grab some more. I've got some more sitting over in the shop. And then these guys shouldn't need anything for a while without trying to find the queen. I know she's in there because there's frames of baby eggs. They seem happy. They seem settled in. They seem very busy. And now our 1 original colony has become 3. So that's really exciting. We're just going to put the lid on as soon as I grab them 2 more frames here and let them do their thing and be busy bees. And then we're going to go look at, we actually have a 4th colony now. So once again, I'm pretty much new to beekeeping. I'm doing videos not because I'm an expert, but because I want to share my ups and downs of learning about this. Encourage other people to learn as well. So we got some of these seated quite tight because that doesn't want to fit. Feel a little bit this way about all living things that we work with, but maybe bees especially. I never feel like I know for sure what I'm doing. I feel like I read and research and try to learn everything I can from other people, and then I'm just making my best guess and hoping, dear ladies, that you can, either that I did the right thing or that you can deal with it, because they are fascinating creatures, and I do not feel like an expert. But apparently we did successfully give them a house here that they like. They've accepted, they settled in, and once again, I have really underestimated how much honey they can produce. Now, the last few days have been partly sunny, partly cloudy, only a few rain showers, but still only 5 days, and they've filled frames with nectar that they've been in this box. And before that, in 4 weeks or so of rain and cold, which is not good bee food collecting weather, because it's not good flower blooming weather and so on when it's cold and rainy, I completely underestimated what they would be able to produce, and they filled their entire hive. So this is our brand newest hive box. This is number 4, and it's identical to all the others. You can get free plans to build your own exactly like this from horizontalhive.com. And some bit of how a bumblebee got in here. They killed it. Said it didn't belong. We do have lots of bumblebees around the property, which is wonderful. The honeybees just don't want them in their house. Again, divider board that I put in here. And I put these guys into here. And we're just going to take that out. So this one I don't expect to see a lot going on in yet. I was painting this box when I saw the other swarm, and I realized that if, hopefully it's not too windy here, we look like we have a thunderstorm on the way. If one of our hives was so full it was swarming, probably there's a good chance the other one was close to doing the same, because they were pretty similar in size coming out of the winter. So I looked in there, and indeed they were starting to make queen cells. They had a little bit more space left than the one that did swarm, because they had a few more frames, because they were actually a slightly bigger colony going into winter. But they were getting close as well, so we did a split on them, just like we created their daughter colony last year. Just gonna move these over and we'll look at them in order going back. I took 5 frames here. These 1, 2, 3. Letting the jet travel overhead. I'm happy if people didn't do quite so much of that. Actually, here in the bottom I see one more bumblebee that's inside right now, and the honeybees are killing it. I haven't seen a bumblebee try to get into our hive yet, but apparently a couple have tried to in this one. Anyway, so took 5 frames with brood, some of their started queen cells, and lots of nurse bees, etc. on them out of that hive, which is right down there by the solar panels that you can see in the background, and moved them into here. So these first 2 frames, they're just starting to draw some comb on. I could just see the beginnings of them working. I don't know what angle you can see that on there. Those were empty comb. So they are doing some work on there. They don't have a ton of worker bees yet, so they haven't done a lot. And these frames had bees that have now, some have hatched, some have, are still developing at various stages of brood there on both sides. Some pollen and honey around it. I really was hoping for it to not get this windy while I was trying to do this. So the bees that they, had the babies in here when I moved them, they are all developing, hatching, lots of nectar on top. On both sides, some capped honey, bees of all ages. And you know what's interesting is when I say all ages, there is very young looking eggs in here, which Which makes me wonder, since it's 5 days since I moved these in here, and all of the eggs should be turned into little grubs by now, if I moved the queen out of the other hive into here. I knew that was a possibility. There is brand new eggs on 3 frames in a row. I'm thinking these guys, I knew one or the other would end up with the queen. It didn't really matter which one. I'm thinking these guys ended up with the queen. This one again is one I moved with them, but there is teensy weensy egg cells everywhere that bigger brood has hatched out. So that's 4 in a row now that have brand new egg cells on it. So the one's got lighter comb. Let me see if I can show you guys that. It's hard for me to tell what is showing up in the light, but yeah, toward the top there you can see cap brood. That's bees pretty far along in their growing. And further down you can see little grubby, maggoty looking things. And below that, you probably can't see, but there's teensy weensy eggs in a bunch of the cells. And that's true on both sides, with some nectar on top. So at least 4 out of these 5 frames, maybe the 5th one here as well, have new eggs. So these guys have a queen. I expected to see them raising a queen, since I didn't know that I had moved her. More baby brand new eggs on this one as well, everywhere a bee has hatched and left a space. So I would say these guys have a queen. So they're going to take off pretty quick, given that that's the case. That's one of the things I want to check. They are not raising a queen because I ended up moving their queen with them. So we'll have to go take a look at their parent colony and see if they're successfully raising a new queen. One of the two is going to have to. But once again, I'm just filling this up with, these were all just empty frames when I did this 5 days ago. And I'm filling them up with more because I'm trying to not make the mistake of underestimating what my bees are capable of producing. So we want to give them lots and lots of space to put food stores, new baby bees, whatever else they want into. And that is all the frames I have right now, because the rest of mine are in a swarm trap, which we probably don't need because we now have 4 bee boxes and all 4 of them are occupied. So I'm just going to put this divider back in the very end here. That gave them, well, basically got 14 empty frames at the moment, or mostly empty, to work on. That should be enough room for a while. And these guys are not raising a queen because they've got one. So that is 2 colonies of our 4 for sure confirmed to have a queen and be doing well. This I don't feel any need to take care of or take the time for, or have more hives than 4 on the property, so this is our final one we're adding. And over time we're going to, I'm sure, lose some colonies and have to redivide them and so on, but that's good to see. These guys are looking good. Now we got to go check on their parent colony and see if they're successfully raising themselves a new queen. And I wanted to poke my head into the one that swarmed and see if their queen cells hatched, that you know, the old queen had left when she moved out. So 2 of the 4 look good. Let's check quick on the others. So now we're back over, hopefully got the mic faced out of the wind, by the tiny house. This is our very original colony. This is the one that the split we were just looking at came out of, and we're just going to see if these guys are raising a new queen, since apparently our original queen is over there. You can see their hive entrance is humming and busy. I expect some of these first frames to still be quite empty because this first 5 or so on this end, of course their entrance is here, I'm sure you can see that. I just gave them 5 days ago when we did all this stuff, and they're drawing a little honey on there, but they haven't really filled them yet. They still had a little bit of space in here. Not a lot, but a little bit. Unlike... Wow, wind, come on. Unlike the other one. Some of these, this was all drone cells they had created themselves with no foundation last year. They're starting to fill that with a little bit of nectar. That one's still mostly empty. This is going to be an empty one because I kind of interspersed them. They're drawing a little bit of comb there. That was just in the hive for 5 days. This is another one that was empty that they had before. It's filling with nectar. It's not super heavy yet. We have another brand new one. We're definitely drawing comb on a good bit, but drawing comb references starting with just kind of flat wall of comb and making those little cells come out each side of it, so they have their little canning jars to store their pantry goods in. That's how I think of them. This was another one they had before. This one is fairly heavy. It's 2/3 of the way full of nectar, not capped yet, but got a good bit of storage going on there. Put another one in between that was a brand new one. Oh, this was an empty frame 5 days ago that had foundation, but nothing else. They've already got it mostly drawn out, and the top, see, on that side about to here is full with nectar, and on this side almost down to here. That one's getting heavy. They're still drawing foundation toward the bottom there. So they've done all that in 5 days. Once again, I apparently just underestimate what bees are capable of accomplishing in a short period of time. This one is very heavy. This one they did have. It is top to bottom full of shiny nectar. I don't want to try too hard to show you guys that because I'm afraid I'll pour some of the nectar out of their little cups if I turn it at different angles. But none of that's capped yet. They are still curing it. So when they bring in nectar, it has too much water in it and they have to evaporate a bunch of water, kind of like you'd make maple syrup if you're a person, to get it thick enough that it will store without molding or anything. And several times recently in the cool evening, so I've never tried this, I put my hand like 6 inches out from that doorway in the evening, and you can feel there's bees in the entryway like fanning to keep air circulation moving, and you can feel this shoot of warm, damp air shooting out of the hive entrance, which is pretty neat. This one's also super heavy. We've got nectar and honey mixed with hatching baby bees, as well as various queen cups on here. What are they doing in there? Sorry ladies, I do want to tip it so I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 4 queen cups there, which is good because this hive must be down a queen right now. So they've got, those are still open cups, but they are working on raising a queen in one or more of those. Let's see what we got in the next couple. Yeah, very, very heavy frames. That's all I can do to lift that with one hand. Hatching bees, honey and nectar filling in the holes where they have hatched out. Same is true on both sides. Don't see any queen rearing activity going on that frame, which is fine. There are plenty of drones in this colony. I think they've raised at least a full frame of drones already for the year. Those, of course, are what the queens need to mate with when there's a new queen. They can make new baby bees. Another very, very heavy frame. Lots of honey, still some maggoty grubs that are growing into baby bees. That's kind of the same on both sides, but I still haven't seen a new egg in here yet within the past, laid within the past few days, which would once again confirm that the queen from this hive ended up in that box. So I thought maybe that box was the one that needed to raise a queen, but I'm wrong. This box does. Another very heavy frame. Honey, nectar, hatching brood. Good bit of drone brood on this one. And the same on both sides. And again, no little eggs, so that further confirms that they are needing to raise a queen. We're almost back here toward the entrance. More hatching. There's several queen cells. These were not here 5 days ago. This one and those two, I don't know if you guys can see that. They've just created those. They're still open. They're not capped off yet, but they are raising queens there, and I see 2 more on the other side, right here and here. This frame must have had the most baby eggs when I moved, because there's little grubs and such on there, and the ones they aren't trying to raise as queen. So of course the colony only needs 1 queen, but to be safe, kind of like any good prepper, they raise multiples so that hopefully a good one will hatch and be their new queen. So they've got queen cells further along on there actually than the ones back on that other frame, but they've got multiple options going, so that's good to see. We've got here in our last few. Very, very heavy frame. Almost, not almost, 100% nectar, top to bottom, almost every single cell on there. I think that one had some baby bees on it 5 days ago, but they have all hatched. And so now they're refilling that with nectar, because with no queen at the moment, there's no way to lay eggs into those cells. Another very heavy frame with nectar, top to bottom, every cell. Gobs of drone bees. That was another one that had some baby bees still growing 5 days ago. And once again, they've hatched and it's being refilled with nectar. And this was a brand new empty frame 5 days ago. Let's see what they've done with that. Well, they've done a good bit of drawing comb and starting to fill it with nectar, but that one's not real heavy yet. So I think this hive looks good. We will have to check on them after a few more weeks, see if they have successfully raised a new queen. Hopefully they will. Ladies, move out of that crack so I can close it. I know, just one of you. Turn around and crawl the other way. There you go. See if one of their queens has successfully hatched and gone on a mating flight and they are queen right again. But at the moment, this original box colony is the one that's queenless, and our original queen is down there in hive number 4. But these guys look really good. I am not concerned about them. They have many, many productive bees here. They've got good looking queen cells going. They have gobs of food. They're creating gobs more. They have more workers than the other one because there's just more bees already in this hive. Though that number will start to go down a bit here over the next few weeks as they don't have new babies hatch. When all the babies that are in here hatch, then they'll have a couple weeks with a brood break because they won't have a new queen laying new eggs for that spell. And then hopefully one of those will hatch. We'll be back to doing their thing. Some people do brood breaks on purpose to reduce mite loads. I have started to see a few dead mites on the bottom of these hives, so I know there's a few in here, so that's probably not a bad thing for this hive to get a brood break and reduce the amount of mites, because of course we're still keeping bees treatment free, no artificial feeding of sugar. At one hive we did feed back to them some of their own honey this spring, but no artificial feeding anything. And yeah, so we want them to continue continue to stay strong and healthy and be able to deal with whatever comes their way. Calm down, ladies. And as you can see, I've got lots and lots of frames in here, so they should have plenty of room to continue to build out the massive amount of honey they are producing right now. And that will, slow down a little as the bee numbers drop a bit, as some die of old age, and the new queen hasn't laid eggs yet. So we'll have to check back in on hive box number 1 in a few weeks, see if one of those ladies has hatched. But for not having a queen, they look good, happy, busy. You may have noticed, because I always get questions about that I'm not using smoke. Our bees don't seem to like it. I wear the bee suit just so I can relax, but not a single bee in 3 hives yet has seemed interested in stinging me. So now we just got the other one to check on. Now we're over here at box number 2, the 4th one we're checking on for the day as we go in a circle around the property. All the same style of boxes, all from I actually bought the hives themselves from Dr. Leo, but he also has plans if you want to build your own. We just have too many things going on. You can probably see some other projects in the background, which I will be getting the videos on shortly. So we just bought them, did not build our own, but you can build your own. He gives away the plans if you want to. These 5 were brand new foundation frames. So this is the hive. They're starting to draw wax. Haven't done a lot of work yet on that one. This was the hive that threw the swarm. They were too crowded. Every cell in here was completely full of a baby bee or honey or nectar or something. And so the queen left this frame they had before, top to bottom, full of nectar, not capped honey yet, a little bit of pollen, almost all nectar. Once again, I kind of interspersed empties with fulls here so that they would have some space. I told them I was sorry I let them get so crowded because I didn't think they could work that fast. In the future, I've learned, first thing in the spring when I can get in, just put in all the empty frames I can, let them fill them as they so choose. Well, I've drawn a little comb on there. That's one I, had just interspersed again 5 days ago with what they had going on, trying to make them space and make them not feel so cramped in here. Heavy. This is one they had. Last tiny bit of brood hatching out of the middle of that. Starting to cap some honey on the top. I don't know if you guys can see right here. There's a little bit of brood left. There's kind of a matching spot on the other side. But capping honey at the top, and it is full, pretty much every cell to the bottom with nectar. Again, this hive has a good many drones in it, which we're happy to let them just naturally raise however many boy bees they think they or the area is in need of. Don't try to control that. This was an empty one I put in there 5 days ago. They've drawn a lot of it out and are filling it with nectar, but it's not super heavy yet. This wind is making it difficult to not jar the frames a little bit. Once again, very happy, content bees. Nobody seems upset at all. They've got obviously good flow of nectar and such coming in. Once again, we've got bees hatched out of the middle. Bees still, so I'm going to try to show you this. So this middle had baby bees. They're pretty much now hatched in the last few days. The strip that was younger out around is all capped brood, so they'll hatch next. And over the top here is capped honey. And we pretty much had the same thing on the other side here. Smaller hole that have just hatched out that they're refilling with honey because these guys don't have a queen right now because she packed up and left. Brood around it and honey over the top. They still seem totally happy and content. So as we get over here toward their door, we'll see if their queen cells that were left have hatched. Hopefully she's had good weather for going on a mating flight. Heavy frames. A little bit of hatching drone brood and a little bit of others on there. Almost all nectar and or honey. got. There's one queen cell. You can see that has not hatched. So I don't know if it's not quite ready to. It still looks intact and good. This hive particularly seems to have a lot of dark colored bees, less of the yellow colored bees, which is interesting. Lots of brood still hatching there. Anywhere they have hatched being refilled with honey. Same on this side. Capped honey at the top. These frames are all heavy. And there, once again, if I blow on them a little bit, you can see we've got 2 capped queen cells right there at the bottom edge of that frame. They have also not hatched. So, we've got at least 3 options there for making their new queen at the moment. Or, you know, new queens growing up. Only one of them will survive. Whoever makes it will kill her sisters. A little bit of brood left. Lots of nectar, honey at the top. Same on both sides. Heavy, heavy frames. I'm sure glad we don't have lying straw style hives where I have to pick the entire boxes up and can just pick individual frames. Another even heavier one. Same thing. Nectar, honey, hatching brood on both sides. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Nectar, brood, honey, nectar, brood, honey. This colony, of course, still has lots and lots of workers. By watching the door, I could never tell by how active it is that, you know, half of its bees moved out in a swarm. Another one, still got a bit of brood on here. The queen had laid before she left. Some grubs, honey, and this one again has 4 capped queen cells down here in this bottom corner. So that adds up to, I've now lost count. I think there was 8 or 9 queen cells the day they swarmed in here. So one of these should be hatching. I actually thought they might have hatched already, but maybe the old lady felt like she needed to leave quick because they were so full. These guys weren't quite ready to hatch. That's a little bit of brood left, mostly drone, gobs of honey and nectar. So maybe she just felt like she needed to leave even though the other queens weren't quite at their hatch day because they were so crowded, but cells look good in there. Super heavy, nectar the whole way to the bottom, honey at the top and most of the way to the bottom on that side. This is another one that I suspect I may have to pull some honey out of midsummer just to give them space in here again. Now these 2 were brand new frames. Again, just a few days ago. They've drawn a little bit of the comb, but haven't done a ton of new work there yet. So these guys look good. We're going to leave them alone for a little bit now until after the new queen should have hatched and hopefully been on her mating flight and back and in there laying eggs. So this one and hive box number 1 I'll have to check on and see if they have queens laying eggs here after a bit. Other than that, everybody seems good, content, busy, putting up lots of food for the winter. Looks like at this point far more than they could possibly consume, which is nice because then they'll hopefully have a little extra to share with us. And it's not quite July. It's still been, I think we had 2 nights now that didn't freeze. Otherwise it froze and or snowed every day of what the calendar said was summer so far. And despite that, that's what they've been up to. So that's a look at our beekeeping. A little over a year into keeping bees naturally and using the horizontal hives, which I'm a big fan of so far for how they've worked out in our winters. These just keep the wind from ever flipping the lid off, hopefully. And how we've gone, if you've watched the whole playlist of honeybee stuff, how we've gone from our 1 hive we bought to now having 4 boxes full of bees and hopefully plenty of honey for our household. That was the goal. Thanks for spending your valuable time with us.
I hope you learned something interesting and useful.
Or found something beautiful here.